Yeah, exactly. How we're doing stuff together is all about community.
Everybody's self-driving.
Yes, the only thing that's real.
All right, if it looks like we're laughing, it's because we are. All right, Chasing the Ride. We just recorded the most epic 10 minutes. We basically solved the world's problems.
Yeah, I think Garret solved cold fusion.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I didn't write it down, so we're fucked.
Right. So
we're good.
Yeah.
I take the blame. Phil, I forgot to hit the record button on the audio. So we are going to start over. We have Garret. We have Scott. Chasing the Ride. We've got some cool stories. We got a practice run-in.
We get a total practice run-in. And my first question was so terrible. I'm going to start over with a different one.
Cool.
So, one of the things we love to talk about is how motorcycles were in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And earlier you talked about, and it was just gold. You talked about growing up on mini bikes and things like that. But tell me, because I grew up on a farm in New Jersey, and for us it was ATVs. It was a bunch of different stuff, or kind of pre-ATVs. We had one of those 6-wheelers actually.
Oh yeah,
they were like a tank. It was super cool. And then for us to get from place to place, my dad, sorry Dad, you got a DUI a long time ago, and he had to drive a moped to work, which was fucking, excuse me, it was hilarious. And so that was my first really thing.
Yeah.
Tell us about yours.
Yeah. So I grew up on a 10-acre ranch in Northern California. My dad grew up, in upstate, like I said, riding dirt bikes as a kid his whole life. So he got me and my brother a mini bike, a little Honda 50 when we were 3 years old. That's what we started out on. My mom was actually the one to spend the whole day out there with me patiently and give me the confidence to be riding at 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah.
And I graduated from there to 125s, 175s, 250s. My last dirt bike was a Yamaha TT 500. And yeah, it was just country boy life. It was riding our dirt bikes to go fishing, riding down the train tracks, going and, getting kicked out of farmers' fields and
jumping whatever you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
And then in high school, I think that's kind of when Craigslist started coming around, and my dad, my brother, and I got really into fixing and flipping them. And so we'd find cheap deals, free deals. A lot of the time we got kind of a reputation as the Carmen boys that, those guys fix motorcycles. So, somebody's husband would pass away. The wife would call us and say, hey, he put some bike in that barn 10 years ago. And if you come get it with your truck and your ramp, it's yours. And we'd clean the carburetor, put a new battery in it. And
back when barn finds meant something.
Right.
Yeah.
So before I ever started working here, I personally sold probably at least 100 motorcycles. It was a family thing too, with my grandpa, my dad, my brother, and I. We'd have Carmen family rides every year. So Grandpa would come out to visit us. And
what's Grandpa's name?
Grandpa was Bob.
Bob. Yeah. Nice.
So he'd come out and do awesome rides with us. So that was a lot of really good memories. After college, I decided I'm going to take a month off and go ride across country, kind of figure my life out. So I rode my Sportster from basically Sacramento to Santa Cruz, touched the Pacific Ocean real quick, and then shot over to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, touched the Atlantic Ocean, and turned around and went back. It was a 9,000-mile, month-long road trip.
I have a question about that road trip. Did you plan it, or were you just sort of like, I'll find a place to stay wherever?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So I started planning it. I discovered the Ewan McGregor documentaries, Long Way Round, Long Way Down. Those were awesome inspiration. So, it was I need to get away, but I also made sort of a list of cities I was interested in where I knew the job markets were good. And I'm lucky enough, I have friends kind of peppered across the whole country. And so I had a lot of couches I could sleep on. But I did meet somebody. It was, I think, my second night on the road. This guy had been traveling back and forth across the country on his BMW for 3 years nonstop, I think. And so I asked him, what's your best advice? And he said, if you pay to stay in a hotel, you're paying money for a cheaper experience. And he rode off. And I took that to heart. Luckily, when I'm early on that trip, I only got a hotel twice in that month. So I had a bedroll, a tent, most of the time the weather was hot enough. It was in the middle of summer. I just threw the bedroll right next to the bike, sometimes right next to the road. I had a lot of, like I said, friends. I could sleep on their couches. I did get like a hostel a couple of times, but for the most part, as much as possible, tried to avoid the hotels.
Yeah. Nice. What was the craziest thing during that trip in your memory that you remember?
Yeah, it was all kinds of stuff. One of the craziest circumstances was leaving Houston, and after being in Texas for about a week, my friend in Houston texted me, and she said, "Hey, it looks like there might be some rain in Baton Rouge you might hit." And I texted her back, "Good, I can't wait. I've been boiling, you know."
Mm-hmm.
And the highway from Houston to Baton Rouge, it's all suspended highway over the bayou, basically. And it started dumping so bad. The highway's flooding. The semi-trucks are blowing past me. I'm on a little 500-pound Sportster. So I pulled underneath some underpass and asked some Cajun guy, you know, is there a better way to get from here to Baton Rouge besides the highway? Because I can't hide this. I'm going to fall and get run over. And he said, no, there's not. And I found on my phone I had to go 40 miles. And my phone was blowing up. The iPhone, you know, flash flood warning, find high ground. and the water's getting higher and higher. So I rode about 40 miles through 18 inches of water. It was over my highway pegs. And I remember, you know, passing churches and thinking, is it time to seek shelter? Like, is it bad enough now that I need to knock on that door and say I need help?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I made it all the way to Baton Rouge. I soaked their lobby. I mean, it looked like somebody pushed me into a swimming pool.
Mm-hmm.
And then got my hotel room. And as soon as I started unpacking the bike, the clouds parted and the sun came out and everything dried up. I could have totally made it to New Orleans, which is where I was trying to go.
Yeah. I've never had any experience close to that, but you know, I've had lots of other experiences where that becomes the well that you go to.
Yeah.
And you're like, where you're in a bad experience doing something and you're like, well, I've been through worse.
Yeah.
And you draw from that and you're like, this is not going to be a problem. I can get through this.
Yeah. Rain doesn't bother me that much anymore. I mean, I went through so much of it on that trip, but after that, it was like, I'm just getting wet right now. It's not like I'm going to slip and fall down, you know? And if you just keep riding, eventually you're just going to dry off again.
I think the worst part of that, even if you're in like full waterproof gear, is that puddle that pulls out from your leg on the seat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. That's like,
It's got like testicle suit.
Yeah. You're in the area that's total swamp ass.
Yeah.
You're just like, there's just no other way around it. That's hilarious.
I'm going to use that testicle suit.
Yeah.
I've never thought of a good way.
Yeah, our producer Mary is like, fucking tell me about it. So you go do that. You take some time off from college, and then what's the route? How do you get to here at Mile High Harley and Parker?
Yeah, so I'd pass through Denver, I think 3 times by the end of that trip. Once before, and then, you know, once on the way out and once on the way back. And on the way back, I was staying at a friend's house in downtown. He's on the 11th floor of a building looking out at the mountains. And it was like the last night or two of the trip. And I was kind of looking at the mountains and thinking, okay, you saw almost everywhere you wanted to go see. What do you think? You know, what's your favorite so far, or is home the best, or what? And I just took that time and it was like, yeah, I think what I learned on that trip is, to me, the United States it's an XY graph of, you go east, it's humid, west, it's dry, north, it's cold, south, it's hot. And where I want to be is somewhere cooler and dry. I don't want to deal with humidity. Right. So I knew the jobs were good out here. I like all the outdoorsy activities we do out here. We got some amazing motorcycle riding. Got the Rocky Mountains I get to go play in every weekend. So that's when I decided. I went home and I moved out here 8 months later, had no jobs lined up. I just had my old 92 pickup truck and a backpack. And
Nice.
The third day I was here, I had 2 job offers. The week after I got here, I had a place.
How many years ago was that?
10 years ago.
Yeah. Nice.
Mhm.
And I think that's the beauty of Colorado in a lot of ways, right?
Right.
There's so many people that are obviously grew up here and live here their whole lives, but a huge percentage of us have come from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And
It's a good and bad thing.
yeah, and yeah, good and bad. California drivers.
Yeah,
But
I know.
you know, one of the things that I, you know, love is that, you know, everybody's here because they want to be here.
Right.
They're not stuck here.
Yeah.
Most people have changed that journey, and like, I'm not going back home, wherever home is.
Right.
And I think that's great. And so so first few jobs were what, and now you're doing what here?
Yeah. So I started as an underwriter for a big real estate investment company out here. And then from there, I had a buddy in the tech industry who they were hiring, and he actually came to me and he said, "Hey, you have a mechanical mind. You work on motorcycles. Our company, we build giant computer servers. So I know you're teachable. Would you be interested?" And to me, it was a $60,000 job with benefits. I never had anything like that. Oh, heck yeah, let's do it. So I did that for about 8 years. I did that for 4 or 5, and then I did a startup for a little while, and got into inside sales and then outside sales, and great sales experience. I had that experience previously from flipping motorcycles with my dad and my brother. So it was fun. I just didn't really have a passion for it. I just was smart enough to do it. And then about 2 years ago, my grandma, who was very, very close to me, passed away. And then a few months after that, October 7th happened in Israel, and it was an Israeli-based company I was working for at the time.
Oh.
There was layoffs. And so I got let go from that job. I was kind of in this grieving process, and I took a few months off, again, sort of like that road trip, to reflect, okay, here's where I am. Where do I want to go now? And, I had some really good offers from like Northwestern Mutual and State Farm or something like that.
Kind of going that route.
And I was just like, gosh, all that just kind of makes me sick to my stomach to think about going back to. And I'm in a good spot where I'm financially secure enough. I bought my house, my truck's paid off, all my motorcycles are paid off. I think I want to just do something fun for a little while. So I live close to the Aurora store, actually, which made me think of that. And they didn't have any job listings, but it said you could email R. Farrow, who was Robbie.
Yeah.
And so I emailed him, and I just said, hey, here's all my sales experience. Here's all my motorcycle experience. Here's all the bikes I have. If you got any sales positions open, that'd be very interested. If not, man, I'll be a wash bay kid. I just want to be around motorcycles. And he emailed me back and said, we have an immediate opening for a sales position down at the Parker location. Can you come in for an interview tomorrow? So I came in for an interview at this store the next day and signed the employment contract that day. I went home and thought about it for a little bit, but then called the sales manager at the time and said, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And it was great. I loved it on the sales team. I was very successful. I'm still I'm very close with a lot of the guys that I was on the sales team with. I work very close with them every day, let them know about, any kind of issues I got going on in the shop that, hey, this guy's probably going to need to trade in or something like that. And at one point, Robbie asked me, would I consider going into the service department because he needs somebody with a sales experience over there. And I said, I'm one step ahead of you. I've already been thinking about that because with my background, I do know a little bit about the mechanics of these things. And I have the sales skills. And so I've been over at service now for, I think it's almost 9 months, and it's going really well. I'm crushing it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you were to share something that most people don't know, coming in, a tip to buy a motorcycle.
To buy a motorcycle?
To buy, because you're on the other side, right?
Yeah.
You're on the other side of the aisle, coming in to buy a motorcycle. What's the one tip you're going to give them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah.
Ooh, I got to answer that carefully.
That's right. This is
that's right.
First of all, no matter what the price range is or anything like that, first off, let's find what motorcycle you actually need. You got to figure out what kind of riding are you actually going to do. Let's go test ride like 2, 3, 4 motorcycles. I don't mind as long as I get you on the right bike is what matters most to me.
Yeah.
I think that the tech tip that most people don't know or realize, especially with these newer motorcycles and how much electronics and computers are on them, you need to plug that thing in to a battery tender almost every single time you park it in the garage, not just wintertime. Yeah.
Interesting.
That's the number one service phone call I'll get is, hey man, I rode this thing yesterday. We had a cold night last night. I went out to start it this morning. It had a slow start. Now I got all these check engine lights. What happened? You have to, it's not a car. You have to maintain that battery.
So last question on that, because I'm super interested, is as when you were in sales, because this is kind of an ambiguous, black arts kind of situation. How do you know? when you're dealing with somebody, whether selling them a motorcycle or where you're at, how do you know when you got them? I got them, right?
Yeah. I'm a storyteller, you know, when I'm selling somebody, I'm selling them myself. I mean, I'm real. I don't want to sell you something more expensive that you're going to ride away, park it in the garage and be like, God, why the hell did I buy that thing? You know, when I can see that spark behind their eye and they're as enthusiastic about it as I am, I know I got you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And one of the things too with a bike in particular is these are all wants,
Right.
right? You got on it.
Yeah.
You've moved on and you now go into a bigger CC or you're doing something, or maybe it's your first, like you said. And for me, you know, it's no secret. My dad was a Chevy dealer. I grew up in that business. And I remember, same thing, just trying to find the right fit for somebody.
Right.
You know,
That was most important to me.
I was in the era of like the Geo Metro, and people would come in and be like, hey, I want this Geo Metro. And I'm like, you're 350 pounds. You can't be in this car. But they wanted it. And you're like, okay. And then I'm like, why don't you try this?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, found something that's a better fit. So then come back later, like you said, and like, why didn't you sell me this car?
Right.
Yeah.
No, I want you to have as much fun on them as I do. And so I would see that all the time. People would come in and look at a Nightster 975. And I'm like, why do you think you want a 975? Because again, you're 250 pounds or something like that. Well, I don't want to, I'm still learning. I don't want to jump up to CCs too much. Hey, that's fair. That's a good idea. But I really think you should try this Softail right there. And honestly, you should probably be on a touring bike, but let's work you up to that. You know, what I think is going to happen if I let you get that 975, so you're going to ride away with it. You're going to love it for like a month or two, and then you're going to outgrow it. And you're going to trade it in. So
yes, it's like boats.
Yeah. Yeah.
People always start with like the small boat, and then like next thing you get another boat, and you got a bigger boat.
Right.
That's what you really wanted. You dipped your toe in the water, literally.
Yeah.
And then
Or campers.
Or campers. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Any of those things. This is the last camper we'll ever buy. 2 years later, I need a bigger camper.
Right.
This is a tremendous mistake. Yeah. Exactly. You know, one of the things I remember is my first sale. Do you remember your first sale? And it could be when you were a kid or working for Mile High. Tell me about that.
Yeah. I think we kind of talked about it a little bit off camera before, because it's my official career in motorcycles is only a little over a year, you know, but I mean, realistically, I've been selling them since I was 19. I'm 35 now. So I'm, you know, got 16 years basically of doing it. But I'll say that my first official sale a year ago, he's a regular here in the store. He's a friend at a dealership. He comes and hangs out every Saturday. He had a test ride scheduled with a different salesman just for fun that day. He'd recently bought a motorcycle, and that salesman had quit a couple of days before that appointment was set up, and nobody wanted to take it because they said it was going to be a waste of time. And I said, I'll just do it. I like Gordon. He's a good guy. Sorry if I called shut
Yeah, you're good. Sorry. Good. Yeah. He's a good guy.
Yeah. But so I said, and it was slow and it was a beautiful day. So I said, man, let's go on a motorcycle ride. That's fine. So him and I went on a motorcycle ride. It was great practice for me, you know, going through the steps of sales that we were practicing at the time. And then we got back and I said, hey man, as a favor, since I did you a favor and took you out on this motorcycle ride today, why don't you let me show you numbers? It's just practice for me to show. I've never written out numbers. I've never presented them. I want to see what that process is. Can you do me a favor and just hang out and let's show numbers? And he said, yeah, sure. Sounds good. So we wrote out the numbers. He looked at them. I think we went back and forth once, and then he shook the sales manager's hand and bought a motorcycle right there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. The guy that nobody thought they could sell to, who didn't need a bike, who everybody thought was going to be a waste of time. And I was just, hey man, let's just see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So you touched on something there too, which is test riding and finding the right bike for the customer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I used to be in cars with people on test rides, and I thought I was going to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so this is a totally different experience. Are you literally riding side by side with him, or you just put him out on his way?
No. So I ride in front usually.
Okay.
Or do you ride on the back?
No.
Yeah, he's crutch around the back.
Yeah.
I have had a guy ride on the back with me before because he didn't have a license, but he wanted to do it, and nobody else would take him on that test ride.
Did you buy it?
No. No.
Are you sure he was shopping for a motorcycle?
I don't know.
Exactly. This got a little cuddly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Normally I ride in front, we ride staggered the whole way. I kind of judge him a little bit before the ride. I just, hey, how much have you been riding? You want to go a little fast today, or do you want to just, experience the cruise? I like to take people on a loop where we do a little bit of highway, a little bit of off-road. I'm sorry, a little bit of neighborhood roads. And, but yeah, you do get some inexperienced people who want to ride right behind you, or will come to a red light and they'll almost bump your back tire.
Yeah.
One of the other older salesmen here, he's got some stories of people falling off trikes. A lot of people,
falling off a trike.
So to test ride a trike here, you got to watch like a 30-minute training video.
Yeah, because you're turning and
everybody tries to put their feet down, and then your foot gets run over and gets sucked right underneath.
Oh man,
Rich has a bunch of stories like that. So
yeah, that's interesting. And then, do you then? All right, here's what you need to think about while you're riding this bike. Here's how you want to feather it. Here's how it takes off the line. Here's the torque. Like, tell me about that part of the process in the test ride kind of pre-sale process.
Yeah, so that's all done. At least with me, I do that all before the test ride. That's really what I'm doing as a subject matter expert, is finding what I think is the right motorcycle for you. So I'm trying to figure out what is your riding style, what kind of riding you're going to be doing, and then based off of all that information, I'm going to make a recommendation, maybe 2 recommendations too. And we can go test ride them both and compare, one versus the other. Usually, most of the people that come in here are pretty capable riders, so it's minimal explanation. With the newer bikes, sometimes I got to explain, here's the riding mode button. I got you right now just in road mode, but you can, if you want, you can pop it in the sport mode. I don't care, or you can put it in the rain mode. Yeah, other than that, it's not usually too bad. There's sometimes, when you get smaller people riding a touring bike for the first time, you got to kind of build their confidence a little bit that, hey, I know it looks big and heavy, but really if you handle it this way, if you're calm, it's going to be just fine.
Yeah. And that's the sales stuff has now had to help you. You kind of alluded to it a little bit, but on the service side of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you also know the bikes really well, plus you used to work on them as a kid. And so how has that transition gone?
Just like you said, it's my sales skills have translated over there to where, like this last Saturday, instead of sitting at my desk waiting for a phone call to come in, I'm walking around the floor, and I caught wind that this guy who just bought a bike might be the kind of guy who wants to upgrade it. And so I grabbed him and I said, hey, you want to come see this cool 135 build we just did? And I showed it to him. I had the dyno sheet sitting right there. And sure enough, he's like, yeah, I'd love to do something like that. And then I'm going to introduce you to my parts guys who know way more about this than I do. And you know what? I'm going to get my tech out here too. And so that was really cool. It was him, my parts guy, and my tech all kind of geeking out together on what's the coolest thing we can do to this bike. And, me just taking the initiative to walk out there and, hey, I heard you might be the kind of guy that was interested in this stuff. And now we're going to build him like the coolest, most awesome dream bike he's ever had. So
that's amazing. How many times have you used this is my first sale technique? Can I just help you run some numbers?
Right.
I had to go back to that because
yeah, sorry. It's hard to say, but I mean, oh yeah, I mean, it's not. This is my first sale. It's just let's take one more step.
Yeah,
let's see. Yeah. Not getting a commitment from you. Let's see what the parts would cost. Let's see what labor would cost. Let me just show you an estimate.
Yeah, so they're at least fully informed.
Exactly.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to transition on, because one of the reasons that Rider Justice and Mile High Harley were doing stuff together is all about community. And Phil knows, the motorcycle community is, I think, one of, while it may be broken into different groups and subcategories, it's also the most cohesive community that I'm aware of, and it's one of the things that I just love about it and why I'm so passionate about it. And I'm just wondering what your perspective on that is with all your years, and what it means to you.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We're almost like, I was talking to somebody about this. We're almost like the pilot community or the scuba diver community. There's a few of us who do it. It's a little dangerous, you know. You have to have a certain type of brain to be able to turn off stress and to calculate risk. So I think we all kind of respect that with each other, and then, you know, I don't know. There's definitely a community part of it. And then when I noticed that was definitely the case with Harley-Davidson was when I was doing that cross-country ride. I mean, if I was broke down on the side of the road, it was always another Harley guy who pulled up, "Hey man, what do you need? You need a screwdriver or something?" And that feels good to pass along too. And you always got something in common. You know, you roll up anywhere in the middle of Yellowstone or something like that, and some guy's on a big ultra limited, and you know, I'm on a little Sportster, we got something to talk about. And we went to Sturgis last year. That was my first time going for the actual event. And I thought it was going to be chaos. I'm like, that many motorcycles riding around, it's going to be nuts. There's going to be accidents constantly. And I was totally blown away on how well everybody flowed together. I mean, I felt safe all day. I walking around, everybody seemed to be happy and be with each other. So that was really cool. That was a prime example of just like-minded, really cool people.
So what's the one, and maybe I'll pose this to you as well, Scott. I've got different answers when I've asked this. What is the one common thread that motorcyclists share? You know, you mentioned danger, you mentioned that. But I'd be interested.
I love your analogy. I've never heard anybody say it this way before, but like divers, I don't know pilots, but you know, pilots.
They'll let you know if they're a pilot.
Yeah, they'll let you know, just like if they went to Princeton or Yale.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I think for me, it's that sense of community, and regardless of what you ride, right? You're on adventure bikes. I've got an old CB 360. You've got probably 40 bikes.
Yeah, six, right. My brother's got like 45.
Right, which is awesome. And anybody can, you know, shoot the shit about them, their experiences, some experience out on the road. That, to me, that's the common thread. I don't know about for you. But.
Yeah. I'd say part of it maybe, you know, I was a wrestler in high school, which is a solo sport. Motorcycle riding is kind of a solo sport too, where you have to be, you know, pretty independent and reliable, I guess. Maybe that's it. You know, I don't know. It's just all the adventures and fun that I've had. I want everybody to have that. And I think everybody else who rides wants everybody to have that. And we love hearing, you know, these kinds of stories when we talk to each other too.
How about you? What do you think?
I think it is the adversity. I think it's the desire to, last weekend we were out at the MSF class, just on that pad, beginners, and people were dropping their bikes or, you know, all at the very beginning level, but they were still high-fiving and smiles because it's hard, right? And whether you're riding through 18 inches of rain, puddled, or freezing cold or whatever, or just out in the wind, I think it's that level of like, we all share that. We all have a story. We know it's hard. We know it's a little bit dangerous. I think that's part of when people pull up, you're like, yep, they're part of us.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's, to your point, it's the shared experience, male, female, doesn't matter. And then there's always that one or two people, and we all have them in our lives, they're like, oh shit, she can ride. And it's got miles. Miles.
Yeah, we have one of our customers right now. I pride myself in doing long distance rides, and this woman is nuts. She rides the Hokahay, she rides from the Keys all the way up to Alaska. She does, you know, weekend trips to Vegas and back real quick. She does insane mileage. She's the only other person I know in real life besides me who rides more.
Yeah. This is Rachel. This is Rachel.
Yes.
Yeah, we good for
not Rachel. Michelle.
Yeah, well, there's also Rachel. I'll introduce you to Rachel because that woman can put some miles on a motorcycle. And same thing. She's like, I'm just gonna run to California this weekend.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna stop through on the way to Flagstaff and see you guys where you're doing the thing. And you're like, oh, shit, Rachel. Like, I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just awesome.
We would be remiss without acknowledging. I have this question, Scott. We've both been in many events. There's something about the Harley-Davidson community, though. You know, I'm sport bike community, adventure community, this and that, but the Harley-Davidson community is just like, you know, to the 10th power.
Yeah.
You know,
It's so true.
What is that?
What is that? Yeah.
I don't know. It's probably the history, the heritage of motorcycles or of Harley, the reliability, you know, it's just balls to the wall American. I mean, it's overbuilt, not efficient. You know, sort of like NASCARs right now. But that's you know what makes them awesome. And we also have a country where we can ride awesome, monstrous motorcycles like this.
All over the place.
All over the place. And most of the world is not like that, you know.
Yeah.
That has thousands and thousands and thousands of miles of unblocked pavement, you know, without having to go through 16 checkpoints and all kinds of stuff.
Highway 50.
Right.
You're right. Yeah, and I think, you know, even a little kid, your thought of a motorcycle is a Harley.
Yeah.
Right. And it just is. And, you know, some aspire to it. Some, you know, just it's kind of the quintessential thing in the back of their brain.
Yeah.
And, and I think that's, yeah, you're right. It's, to me, in all the communities that we deal with, and I'm kind of Switzerland, and as a lawyer, it is the most cohesive group.
Yeah.
That we know and love. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
So I got a question for you, and I didn't tell you we were going to do this. You've got an opportunity to ask you a lawyer a question for free. What? Oof. Yeah, throw me one. What do you got? And no, you can't do that. It's illegal. Whatever is in your brain right there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty lucky where I stay out of trouble. I do gotta, you know, avoid cops speeding tickets.
Yes, hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
Yeah.
Here's my one tip that I wish all of your customers knew when buying the bike is also then making sure they're getting just like the right gear that's behind us, you know, the right equipment on the bike is also the right insurance.
For sure.
And get as much underinsured motorist coverage as possible. And then, you know, like your customer you're talking about that then goes and outfits the bike and does all sorts of cool stuff to it, get really good accessory coverage. Make sure your bike is actually valued at the price that it's valued at.
Right.
Because after you do all the aftermarket stuff, all the stuff on it. That would be my advice to anybody who buys a bike here or anywhere else is, you know, get the right insurance, get the underinsured motorist coverage on there.
Right.
Because, you know, we talked about it, you know, it's dangerous, but it's awesome and fun at the same time. And if you got the right coverage, then you're going to be okay.
Right.
Yeah. That would be my advice.
I think that's good advice.
Yeah. And it's just consider it part of the gear.
Right.
You know, consider it as part of the cost. Because there's nothing worse than somebody calling me later and like, oh yeah, I got full coverage. I'm like,
yeah, I hope you do.
Yeah, you really don't.
Yeah.
And when I hear full coverage, I know they don't.
Right.
And they got the minimum or none.
Right.
And then we got some thinking we got to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, Garret, it was great talking to you. I really appreciate it. Very fun. Thank you for taking a Monday off here.
Yeah.
The shop closed, and I really appreciate it. Phil, same.
Yeah.
And let's hang on for the next episode of Chasing the Ride.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Guys.